Hello everyone, I greet in the name of God Almighty. My name is Apostle Nathan Silas, and today we have a very interesting video to react to. It's actually a video that we're going to have two segments, and this says that Ishmael, the forgotten son, the biblical stories explained. So we're going to look at the first segment and then also the second segment of Ishmael, the forgotten son. So if today happens to be the first time of you checking out my channel, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow me on my Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any video you want me to react to, don't forget to drop it at the comment section and I'm going to check it out. So guys, before we get to the video, I'm a theologian and I make this video not to discredit anyone's religion. This is basically for educational purposes, and I believe that at the end of this video we all are going to learn from this. So guys, let's get down to the video and check this out.
Ishmael. What do we know about Ishmael from the Bible? Ishmael was Abraham's firstborn son. God promised Abraham that he would have a son, and that he would be the father of many nations when he appeared to him. Genesis 15. Abraham, on the other hand, did not have any children as time passed. Sarah, his wife, had been unable to conceive, and they began to wonder how the promise would be kept. In Genesis 16, Sarah advises Abraham to produce a child with her Egyptian slave, Hagar. This was apparently a normal practice at the period. It was also used by Jacob's wives in Genesis 13. The woman would give her husband a woman, but any children produced would be counted as the wife's children, perhaps an ancient version of surrogacy. While this may have appeared to Abraham and Sarah to be a viable option, it really caused more issues than it solved. Hagar did conceive a child with Abraham. When Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to despise Sarah, and Sarah appealed to Abraham for help. Abraham told Sarah to do as she saw fit, so she began to mistreat Hagar, and Hagar ran away. His name. Ishmael means God will hear, God hears, God heard, may God hear. Genesis 16, New King James Version. Now Sarai, Abraham's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abraham, "See now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Please go into my maid. Perhaps I shall obtain children by her." And Abraham heeded the voice of Sarai. Then Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, and gave her to her husband Abraham to be his wife. After Abraham had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. So he went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress became despised in her eyes. Then Sarai said to Abraham, "My wrong be upon you. I gave my maid into your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, I became despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between you and me." So Abraham said to Sarai, "Indeed, your maid is in your hand. Do to her as you please." And when Sarai dealt harshly with her, she fled from her presence. Now the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, Sarai's maid, where have you come from, and where are you going?" She said, "I am fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai." The angel of the Lord said to her, "Return to your mistress, and submit yourself under her hand." Then the angel of the Lord said to her, "I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they shall not be counted for multitude." And the angel of the Lord said to her, "Behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. He shall be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren." Then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, "You are the God who sees." For she said, "Have I also here seen him who sees me?" Therefore the well was called Beer Lahai Roi. Observe, it is between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abraham a son, and Abraham named his son whom Hagar bore Ishmael. Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abraham. It was common in ancient times for a barren wife to present her husband with a slave woman who would bear children for her. The woman, not the slave, was to be in charge of the children. Childless Sarah obtained a son by Hagar, and Ishmael was legally the child of Sarah. This does not explain Sarah's treatment of Hagar. 3. Life of Ishmael. Ishmael was born to Abraham when he was 86 years old and living near Hebron. Genesis 16:16, New King James Version. Abraham was 66 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abraham. Genesis 13:18, New King James Version. Then Abraham moved his tent and dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there for the Lord. His mother was of Egyptian origin. However, God had addressed her in her hour dire need. God made a covenant with Abraham when Ishmael was 13 years old, requiring all members of Abraham's household to be circumcised. Genesis 17:1, New King James Version. When Abraham was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abraham and said to him, "I am Almighty God. Walk before me and be blameless." Ishmael and his mother were banished from the family several years later, after Isaac had been born and weaned, to wander in the wilderness around Beersheba. They were on the verge of dying of thirst when God heard the boy and gave water. Ishmael spent the rest of his life in the desert, particularly in the wilderness of Paran, with the help of God. It was here that he learned to use the bow, and his marriage to an Egyptian explains his proximity to Egypt as well as his mother's heritage. His presence at Abraham's funeral and the fact that Esau married Ishmael's daughter, Mahalath, demonstrates that he did not completely cut ties with the main patriarchal line. Genesis 15:9, New King James Version. And his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the field of Ephron the son of Zohar the Hittite. Genesis 28:9, New King James Version. So Esau went to Ishmael and took Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebajoth, to be his wife in addition to the wives he had. Ishmael lived 137 years and was gathered to his kindred. 4. Divine statements concerning Ishmael. God characterizes his personality as that of a wild ass, in the sense that he is a wandering nomad. 39:5-8, New King James Version. Who set the wild donkey free? Who loosed the bonds of the onager, whose home I have made the wilderness, and the barren land his dwelling? He scorns the tumult of the city. He does not heed the shouts of the driver. The range of the mountains is his pasture, and he searches after every green thing. As a result, he will be at odds with his more settled relatives. God has called him to greatness outside the covenant. Ishmael was to be rewarded by God as a large nation with the same 12-fold organizational structure as Israel, but without direct experience with the covenant, according to Genesis 17:20-21. Genesis 17, New King James Version. When Abraham was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abraham and said to him, "I am Almighty God. Walk before me and be blameless, and I will make my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you exceedingly." Then Abraham fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, "As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of many nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you in their generations, for an everlasting covenant to be God to you and your descendants after you. Also I give to you and your descendants after you the land in which you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan, and an everlasting possession, and I will be their God." And God said to Abraham, "As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male child in your generations. He who is born in your house or bought with money from any foreigner who is not your descendant. He who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money must be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broke my covenant. Then God said to Abraham, As for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her and also give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples shall be from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. Then God said, No, Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, who Sarah shall bear to you at the set time next year. Then he finished talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. So Abraham took Ishmael his son, all who were born in this house, and all who were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very same day, as God had said to him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That very same day Abraham was circumcised, and his son Ishmael, and all the men of his house, born in the house or bought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. The contrast between national greatness and covenant experience reveals a lot about what the covenant really entailed. National greatness is also promised in Genesis 21:13 and 18. Genesis 21:18, New King James Version. Yet I will also make a nation of the son of the bondwoman, because he is your seed. Genesis 21:18, New King James Version. Arise, lift up the lad and hold him with your hand, for I will make him a great nation. Genesis 17:22-27 shows that the covenant is not to be identified with circumcision, no matter how much that identification may appear to be necessitated by Genesis 17:10. Ishmael, despite being circumcised according to God's mandate, was not the covenant son. Genesis 17:10, New King James Version. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised. Abraham and Sarah's treatment of Ishmael. Abraham regarded Ishmael as the promised son of God. Even when God revealed that Sarah will bear a son, Abraham was perplexed as to why this was required rather than having Ishmael as heir. Genesis 17:18, New King James Version. And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. Even after Isaac was born, Abraham treated Ishmael with kindness and was saddened by Sarah's wish to reject him. Sarah, on the other hand, saw Ishmael as a danger to Isaac's position in the family and sought to have him expelled. Genesis 21, New King James Version. And the Lord visited Sarah as he and said, And the Lord did for Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac. Then Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made me laugh, and all who hear will laugh with me. She also said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age. So the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the same day that Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, scoffing. Therefore she said to Abraham, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, namely with Isaac. And the matter was very displeasing in Abraham's sight because of his son. But God said to Abraham, "Do not let it be displeasing in your sight because of the lad, or because of your bondwoman. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice, for in Isaac your seed shall be called." Yet,
Oh, that's very interesting video. I believe that this story of Ishmael is something that some of us, of course, are familiar with it. Either you're a Muslim or you're a Christian, you will be very familiar with it. But then I think when this video was made, it was based on the Christian belief. Okay, so this is based on Christian perspective, and that's why you see some of the references have been based on the Bible and not necessarily about necessarily from the Quran. But I believe that they are more or less, you understand, the same thing. But then nevertheless, of course, some of you understand, my audience, I would like to see the shall I say, the Islamic perspective about Ishmael at the comment sessions. We could also look at some of his descendants and the blessings of God from Ishmael. Now, when you look at, you understand, this very video was talking about, you understand, God blessings and then also his promise to Abraham, despite the fact that God have already promised Abraham that he's going to make him father of all nations and he's going to bless his descendant. Well, even though we knew that Sarah was not able to give birth not until when she was 8, not until when her servant Hagar gave birth to Ishmael. So Ishmael happens to be the first son of Abraham. But during that time, it's been said that if a woman give her servant to her husband to have a child, then at that point in time, the children would tend to be for the wife and not for the husband. And that's why you see when Sarah begins to maltreat Hagar, Abraham was not able to do anything about it, but therefore says that she should do according to how it pleases her. And that gives her, you understand, more power to molest her to the point that she have to flee with her son to the desert, thanks to the angel Gabriel that was able to, thanks to the angel that went there to save the baby by therefore providing waters for him to drink and then the mother. That's why he was able to survive. A very interesting video. But then I believe that if we able to like watch the video till the end, we can be able to understand what actually transpired at the end of it. So I will leave this one to be like the first segment, and then therefore we're going to check the second segment in my next video because it's very too long, so that we can all follow up with some of these stories. So guys, this is the end of my video. If you like my reaction, if you like, share and subscribe, and if you have any video you want me to react to, don't forget to drop it at the comment section and I'm going to check it out. So guys, you remain blessed and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.